And hello everybody, welcome back to the fan favorite series of making a Spotify playlist for each of the 12 soil orders. As a reminder, soil orders are the 12 broadest categories that we divide and group soils on based on their specific characteristics. Last week we were feeling demure, we were in our girly pop era, we were serving up a fresh playlist full of upbeat, happy pop music for all of our Inceptisol enjoyers out there. Now, if you remember, Inceptisols are the youngest, least developed soils, fresh out of the womb from the NRCS, and just really don't have a lot going on. No offense to pop music at all, but it did seem like it was the genre that best fit that category. And my mid-realization that I don't really listen to pop or happy music that happened halfway through the video definitely was a little bit of a wake-up call for me. In this installment, we're moving forward in soil development, where we begin to see these soils take shapes and have more specific features to them. And for this next soil order, we call them Inceptisols. Now, while these soils have nothing to do with the movie Inception, they are at a similar human age to when Leonardo DiCaprio would stop dating them. And no, what I mean there is not that Inceptisols are only about 25 years old. Soils do not work that way. They're on a geologic timescale. In fact, most non-Inceptisol soils typically takes anywhere from 100 to 1,000 years to form, potentially even longer depending on the conditions. No, instead what I mean is that if Inceptisols are this young, happy-go-lucky soil that I associate with like younger age, Inceptisols are that mid-20s phase where you realize not only do you have no idea what's going on, but nobody else does either. You see, Inceptisols are the next step upwards in development from Inceptisols, with an exception 1 and an exception 2, which we'll touch on at the end of the episode. So I drew up a kind of crude diagram to show some of the differences between an Inceptisol, very undeveloped, and an Inceptisol, still on the grand scale of things undeveloped, but more developed than an Inceptisol. Here we have an Inceptisol where we have our A horizon, which is just the soil, a top soil on top. There's not a lot of structure here, not a lot of development in here. It's just kind of that young soil, fresh out of the NRCS, like we were saying. Then we have our CR horizon, which is this kind of liminal space between soil and bedrock. It's this kind of in-between state where it's very hard, like a bedrock, where the soil might be weathered from. However, it still can be dug through, which means it's not bedrock because you can still dig through it with like a hand shovel or a rock hammer, but it's just a lot harder than it would be with your topsoil. Then, let's say 100 or a few hundred years go by, you might get an Inceptisol. We still have that A horizon, but it's a little smaller. And there's a distinct horizon that we're calling a BW underneath. So a B horizon is the horizon typically found underneath the topsoil. I'm not going to get into many details about it. Horizonization can be very confusing. However, what you need to know is that there's likely a color or even a structural change between these two horizons. So while this space used to be just one horizon, now we're seeing two distinct things. Think of the W as standing for weathered. So this might be a different color. It might have a slightly different structure, which is how the soil is held together. And then we still have that CR and that bedrock there. So you can see that the Inceptisol is starting to get more horizonation. And that's that like layer cake structure that we were talking about in the previous video. While the Inceptisol is still very basic. Again, both of these are not heavily developed soils, but you can definitely tell by looking at this one that there's more going on and that more has happened to the soil. The soil has been more weathered and been more developed. So kind of as a little bit of an overview, typically with an Inceptisol, you're not really seeing any structure, or maybe a little bit. Like the soil is held together very loose. Think of sand, like at the beach. You pick up some sand, it kind of all just falls apart. Now, over here, you're going to see more structure. So think about when you grab a soil and it kind of comes out in a chunk. We call that a ped. That is a different structure. That has more development in it. You're also likely going to see color change in this top soil section, while you wouldn't see it over here. However, Inceptisols do not have what we call diagnostic horizons. Now, we're going to get into this with other videos because they're associated with other soil orders, but simply put, a diagnostic horizon is a specific horizon that has a certain that meets a certain physical or chemical requirement that is used to identify soils. So later on, we're going to get into spotisols. There's something called a spotic horizon. And in order for it to be a spotisol, it has to have that spotic horizon. Or there's other examples as well. But Inceptisols do not have any specific horizon associated with them. Now, we will be touching on this again in further videos, so do not worry about it. I will go into a little bit more in depth then. But for right now, all you need to know is while you're seeing more development, you're typically not seeing any distinct defining characteristic of an Inceptisol that makes it specifically an Inceptisol, other than the fact that we're beginning to see more development when compared to an entisol. In fact, these are the second most common soil order, following only entisols. You remember from the last video, I drew up that diagram of the 5 things affecting soil development. There was time, climate, topography, parent material, where the soil is being made from, like the rocks, the bedrock, and again, the least important organisms, biology, that kind of hoo-ha. Inceptisols, when compared to entisols, typically will have a little bit more time. They might be in a more stable landscape, and they often will have more weathering occur to them, which means they might be in a wetter, moister climate. However, very often it's just a matter of time. If entisols were those young, wide-eyed kids whose biggest issues were their bedtime and what patterned American Eagle underwear to buy, how to go with the pineapples, then Inceptisols must be that mid-20s, deep into college, or living in your own apartment, and you don't know who the fuck you are, and for the first time in your life, you really have time to experiment and try to figure out who you actually are. But the more you try to figure out who you are, then the less you know. I had to bring out the stress rock. I was starting to go somewhere. Many soils that have grown up to be alphasols or spotisols or mollisols were once Inceptisols of their own. However, others kind of really quickly found out who they were in those mid-20s, and maybe they decided to stay Inceptisols. Maybe they've kind of found it out quick, and that's kind of who they're going to stay, and they're happy with that, and that's perfectly okay. If you're an Inceptisol homie, that's amazing. You gotta be who you were meant to be. Inceptisols are a necessary step, with some exceptions, on the road to figure out who you are. And much like me, we're just trying to figure out if we're gonna stay an Inceptisol, or maybe we'll become an alphasol, or iridisol, or an andisol, or maybe even a God-fearing mollisol. But that's kind of the journey. And Inceptisols are that phase of your life where you don't know where the hell you're going. And you can only wait for time and life to weather you a little bit till you figure it out. So when thinking of what genre matched Inceptisol, I kind of went round and around again. Because if we're being honest, they're kind of between genres. They're in their Walden era. They're just trying to go out and walk in the woods and feel their emotions, and again, just trying to figure their shit out. And they don't know where they're going. And that in a lot of ways can relate to how I'm feeling right now in my life. So I decided to go with my heart on this one. Like something that's between genres, something that's very in tune with their emotions, or trying to become in tune with their emotions. And to me, and it's kind of a bullshit genre, but I landed on alternative and indie, that kind of vibe. Now, while doing research for this episode, I've come to find that nobody fucking knows what an indie or alternative song really is. So I'm basing most of these songs off, if I Googled the artist and it said it was indie or alternative, I let it slide. Or if Spotify had it in a curated indie alternative playlist or something like that. But there's not really any one thing that makes indie or alternative, or makes it really fit in my experience, and apparently according to the internet as well. And I kind of think that's perfect for Inceptisol, because while there's a lot of similarities vaguely that we all go through this time, nobody's journey is exactly the same either. And what one person might think isn't really a true mid-20s coming of age kind of thing might be somebody else's truth, you know? So I think it works. Now remember the rules. Only one song per artist per playlist. And it's just somebody's got to say the songs are indie or alternative. So with that being said, let's figure this shit out by really not figuring anything out, and let's get into this. First, we have Cocaine Jesus by Rainbow Kitten Surprise. I got really into this band and really into this song specifically towards the end of my master's, and it just hits so goddamn good. I'm an absolute sucker for the oh. I don't know if that worked in editing, so I'm just gonna go oh. Now, I wanted to start this playlist with a upbeat but also kind of hazy vibe, because when you first hit this phase of your life, that mid-20s phase, there's a lot of excitement because you have all this freedom and you have the ability to explore. You might have just gotten your first like real job and have like some real money kicking around, or you're in college and you're learning so much about yourself, and that can be super exciting, but it also goes super fast and it's almost like a haze. And this is the kind of song that you and all your new adult friends would kind of start playing in the car as you're driving out to a bar or to do whatever the hell people my age do besides make weird YouTube videos for the internet. Jesus in a black Next up, we have Jackie and Wilson by our Lord and Savior Hozier, the vanguard for sad bisexual boys and women who collect mushrooms. This is my favorite Hozier song and kind of follows that upbeat vibe and also talks about this passionate love that I think is so associated with being in this mid-20s phase. When you find that person, you immediately just kind of want to talk to them about anything or nothing for hours, and you just want to, you all of a sudden start jumping to like conclusions like, oh shit, I mean, hell yeah, we're gonna name our kid Jackie and Wilson, we're gonna raise them on rhythm and blues. Like, it's a fun, happy song that's got that just passion to it. And I mean, really any Hozier song could do in this playlist, but this one's my personal favorite, and that's a little bit why I made the cut. Also, I'm trying this kind of top knot thing out. Let me know how you feel about it. Next we have The Pale November Dew by the Dead Tongues. This is an absolutely gorgeous song. I mean, just stunningly beautiful. To me, this is gonna sound weird, but it feels like that friend you made over a summer, over a few months, because you were away from home, you were working a job for the Forest Service, and you became instantly just best friends with this person. And you had so many adventures together, and like, even though you only knew them for 4 months, they knew everything about you. And like, you immediately, I'll die for this. I've known you for 4 months, I'll die for you. And then, for whatever reason, you had to move back away. Maybe your term job was done, and just, you guys kind of fell out of touch. And you really want to stay in touch, and you really want to hit him up, but there's too much time that's been passed, and you just begin to worry, and you still think so fondly of those memories. And if you ever saw him again, you feel like it'd be just an insane, like, great friendship connection again, but you're too scared to bring yourself to text them, you know? Maybe that's just fucking me. But it has that super happy vibe with a slight sadness that kind of follows nostalgia, where you think so fondly on those memories, but there's still that tinge of sadness that comes from knowing its time's past. All right, I need a hijack for a rant. This is the first time I've ever grown my hair out. First of all, ladies or guys with long hair, how do you do it? It's knotty as hell. I've had to stop using my 2-in-1 conditioner. I have to actually use separate conditioner and shampoo now, like some sort of weirdo. I mean, that shit, I could use that to clean my car and it'd be great. Now I have to get fucking Pantene. And also, how do you wear these? I wear these things for 5 minutes on my wrist, and I'm worried I have to cut the hand off. How do you do this? Is it worth it? Is the hair worth it? I don't know. Somebody tell me, please. Next we have Of Love and Life by Camp. And I first heard this band and these songs while laying just like that on an old highway in Idaho. I was working in Idaho for like a 6-month period, and it was up north for the national forest, like 30 minutes from Canada. And there was this highway that ran right outside the ranger station I lived at. And we really got no car use for the most part, especially at night. And so I went out there in the middle of the night, and I don't know why, but I just laid starfish just like how I was, looking at the stars. And I could see more stars than I'd ever seen in my entire life. Shout out East Coast kids everywhere. But I was sad, but in a healthy way, if that makes sense. And these Camp is my favorite band of the current moment, and this is my favorite song by them. And I think it's this really beautiful song for any of y'all going through a quarter life crisis, kind of talking about reevaluating some things and finding what things are really important to you. And it kind of talks to you in this like knowing way, like somebody that's kind of has the experience of this. And I think it's a very comforting, very beautiful song that's truly just an Inceptisol vibe for me. God, what am I doing? I'm losing my voice. Making a video about Inceptisols. Gotta making me drink some tea. Next we have Cathartic Ramblings by Joe Caplow. Now I first became familiar with this artist when a YouTube channel that I loved growing up used one of his songs for the last video they ever made, and so I already have a sad connotation of this artist. It wanders from thought to thought. The only real connection is this struggle to figure out who he's becoming and where he came from, and just what's going on in his life. And if that's not Inceptisol, then I don't know what is. Beautiful. Now, Spotify for a while thought I was a 28-year-old sad sapphic woman for about 4 to 5 months, and that's largely because of the songs I like to listen to by this artist and one similar to her. Now our next song is Graceland 2 by Phoebe Bridgers, and while I do not have any saltines, I do routinely eat Triscuits on the floor. So, just makes me a little bit bougier, I guess, although I do fucking love saltines. But anyways, this song is about a young woman who's trying to figure herself out, trying to make a name for herself, try to become who she thinks she wants to become, and moving to Memphis. And I want to make sure I get the quote right, but I just think the specific quote, like I unhealthily connect to this quote, where she's driving and Phoebe sings, "Turns up the music so the thoughts don't intrude." And I mean, again, maybe this is just me who hasn't been in the best mental health the past 2 years, but I feel like everybody's had those late night drives where they're overwhelmed or they're sad and they're beginning to spiral, and you just have to turn up the music to kind of force yourself out of that cycle. And really, again, almost anything by Phoebe Bridgers I think could really fit into this playlist. But it's a beautiful song that I really love, and I think it really fits Inceptisol well, because it kind of touches on that fear you get when you're in your mid-20s, and everything else that comes with it. I wasn't kidding about that Spotify thing either. I have it pulled up right here. Sad Girl Starter Pack. Sapphic songs that defined your music taste as yearning. I got this recommended 2 years ago. I'm a 250, 6 foot tall man. I got a beard. And you know what? I fucking loved every single one of these songs. They're bangers, back to back to back. They're sad as hell, and you know what? Maybe I'm a lesbian. I like women, lesbians like women. I've been listening to Chapel Roan talk about eating a lady out for years before she blew up. God, I'm so stupid. Next up, fittingly after Phoebe Bridgers, we have Thoroughfare by Ethel Cain. This is a long song, really more of a ballad, really. And actually one of her happier songs. The song feels like it's from a coming-of-age indie film. You know the kind of movies that are filmed on that, like, special type of film that kind of adds a little scale to everything that just makes it feel more intense, kind of? And, you know, it's a combination of this young, passionate love and wanting to explore the West, and this idea that there's somewhere out there that you have to be, somewhere out there that you need and that needs you. And that's very Inceptisol, very mid-20s. You know, I feel like if I told my therapist this is the kind of music I listen to, I feel like she would look at me and just be like, yeah, that makes sense. Now we have my favorite love song, If We Were Vampires, by some guy in the 400 unit. Jason Isbell. This song doesn't inherently scream to me Inceptisol lyrically, but just the sound of it, the vibe, is what kind of makes me feel it is an Inceptisol. It's the equivalent of that late midnight conversation you have with somebody that you care deeply about that just hits you like a fucking truck. So the reason I had to make a separate workout playlist a few years ago, different than my 600 song just music playlist, was because I was squatting, listening to some Lil Wayne, and then mid-squat, as I was rising like Jesus Christ himself, Rainbow Connection, sung by Kermit, came on, and I lost it. I think about that sometimes. Next we have Meet Me in the City by Lord Huron, and I think a lot of Lord Huron stuff really fits into Inceptisol. A lot of it kind of touches on this feeling of being in between two worlds, being in this liminal space. And, you know, that's mid-20s, between childhood and adulthood. And the vibes are right for the song. Not a lot else to say about it. No, I don't have any jacks. You're gonna have to go fish. Oh shit, dude, I'm sorry. Can I say that? Shit, I'm sorry. Next up, we have Shallow Man by Sia Gray. So this song is a little more comfortably in that mid-20s period, where we're a lot more confident in the fact that we are not confident in who we are. It's also a little bit more upbeat, but lyrically it still is very confused. And if there could be one word in that mid-20s period that really sums it up, confused would be up there. Now this next song is a little newer to me. It's called Just a Western by Nalufa Kanya. I definitely did not pronounce that one right. Now this is a true indie song in that I don't know what they're saying, what they're talking about, or really what's going on. Is that not just a description of your mid-20s? Now, I did a little digging, and the artist kind of describes this song as lyrically about having to confront fate, and thematically about being, or like rhythmatically about freedom. I don't really pick up on that much, but it feels pretty Inceptisol. Shit, they got Diddy in here fast. Now, next up we have probably one of our most Inceptisol Walden era artists now. Walden era artists that you can find. Bon Iver, specifically with their song Skinny Love. This is one of those songs I thought was super deep in middle school. Then I got too cool for it. Then realized that it was still an intense and beautiful song. The song came up on shuffle when I was driving through the Pennsylvania woods at midnight, and it made me cry, just kind of out of nowhere. Not because I was going through heartbreak. I was in love at the time. No, it was because it made me feel nostalgic for things I'd never known, if that makes any sense. It gave me memories that I never had, ones that felt like they were from a movie but still felt real to me. And maybe I'm alone in experiencing this, but I feel like during this mid-20s time of your life, and maybe into the future, I can't speak for that, certain things can trigger this nostalgic-like feel for things that never really happened to you. But just for a moment while you're listening to whatever that media is, it feels like you got the joy as if they did. Oh shit, they got Jay-Z in here too? God damn. It's got 3 legendary resistances. Back to my sapphic 28-year-old woman era, we have Coming Down by the Dum Dum Girls. This song hits in like a late night shower, a long day where nothing really went right. Just a song for when you're physically and mentally exhausted that is just slow enough that you can still sing along to without exerting anything. And just the emotions and the vibes that it conjures up for me are very Inceptisol. So I make belts, or I'm trying to make belts. I'm trying to leather work. And so I made some of these, and I'm starting to wonder, like, you think I could get like an Adam and Eve sponsorship? Now we have an entry from one of my mom's favorite artists, Slow It Down by the Lumineers, specifically the live version. Now normally I love a live version, but the audience can kind of take it over and kind of overpower it. But that doesn't really happen this time, so I'm going with the live version. The Lumineers have a lot of songs with big Inceptisol potential, Inceptisol energy. But this is the one that comes correctly for me. It's about this broken relationship and being depressed and this intense desire to understand what happened. It's exhausted. It tries to put on a strong face, but it's still just so confused. And it desperately wants answers. There's just this conflicted emotion about a relationship, and I'm seeing a lot of Inceptisol songs that deal with love and relationships, and I feel like that's fitting to a large part, because for a lot of us, not all of us by any means, but your mid-20s and even later on into your late 20s, and dare I say 30s, is about figuring out what you need in relationships, about what can make you feel loved, about who you are, not only for yourself, but for other people, and how you deal with relationships. And, I think in my mid-20s, I've known in just this short amount of time what it feels like to be truly loved, but also truly hurt. Anyways, I love this song, and I love you too, Mom. I hope you're not watching this, because I made an OnlyFans joke last video. For all you crystal girlies out here, is this like your god? Next song, a little bit of a personal choice. It's called Ireland by Lizzie Ann, and it's a song about daydreaming, about living somewhere that you can only dream of. I call this your Neverland, a place that you've maybe only visited once or only dreamed of, but haven't spent a lot of time in, if at any at all. But you'll know it when you get there. Everything will be okay when you're there. You'll stay young. You'll be a kid again. You won't have to deal with all this other stuff that's holding you down and applying this pressure to you. It's just this magical place that if you could get there, everything would be all right. For me, that place is Maine, and for her, it's Ireland, which is a pretty good choice if I say so. But let me know down in the comments if you have a Neverland. They're fun. Am I the kind of guy that thinks he could land a plane? I really want to say no, but you put me in that cockpit and we're all getting home safe. Now we have Time Will Tell by Gregory Alan Ishkov. Sorry. It's a simple song about thinking about the future and wondering what will happen. Knowing full well the only way to know what will happen is to wait. And, that sucks, but, it's true. Just like with the soils, we bring it all around. It's full circle. You have to wait. Time has to go by for soils to develop and become what they're meant to be. If you're wondering how to bag a soil baddie like myself, not that I'm up for sale, but we're not hard, Typically, for me, the bar is about one soft pretzel and a DVD copy of Treasure Planet off the floor. I will propose instantaneously if those things are provided to me. Now we have Snowbank Blues by the Backseat Lovers, or Backstreet. Backseat makes more sense, I forget. And this song starts angry, annoyed with work and just the feeling of being stuck, quarter-life crisis. I'm going through it right now myself, honestly. However, it's contrasted with this daydreaming, similar to the Ireland song I mentioned earlier, this desire to be somewhere else. And you know, the singer is fighting against a lot of stuff that we all go through: anxiety, depression, the unknown, specifically, you know, towards who we are and what we're becoming. And still, there's a bit of hope and a bit of dreaming. And you know, feels pretty Inceptisol to me. I don't know. Now we have the penultimate song, Montreal, by the Ghost of Paul Revere. And I love these guys. I specifically love their Ballad of the 20th of Maine. Doesn't really fit into this playlist at all, but I adore these guys. I think they have a lot of really beautiful songs. But this song kind of follows this weird time jump, so to speak. This transition between, you know, a kid and being a true adult. And ask these questions like, am I growing apart from this person? Am I dreaming, or have I finally woke up? And it really highlights just becoming an adult. Lastly, I wanted to end this on a more upbeat song that shows after all the change and confusion from this period of our lives, we're still hopeful of what to come and what will happen. This song is the classic Silver Lining by Mountain Joy. This song kind of feels like a summary of everything that we've talked about. Looking back at the period of your life, about all the good and the bad, but you're still looking back on it fondly. The confused. It talks to us with the perspective of somebody that's been through it. And it feels like something we would play at the end of a movie as the credits come in, preparing us for the next few years of our lives. So a few of you eagle-eyed viewers might have seen, looking at this graphic here, that technically gelisols and histosols should be before Inceptisols. However, while that can be true, I wanted to put Inceptisols next, so you guys kind of got the idea that we were moving forward in development. The next two videos that we're doing on this will be histosol and gelisols as well. But those are kind of outliers. We'll get into that later, but I just kind of wanted to give you that basis. So anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. As always, the playlist will be linked down in the description. And please, if you have any playlists at all, or if you have any disagreements, or if you have any ideas, put them in the comments. Let me know. Send me any playlists that you might really like. And I'm really looking forward to it. Next video that we're doing on this topic will be histosols, which I think might be my finest work. But yeah, I'm feeling good about this playlist. Thank you so much for watching. And I mean, hell yeah, please let me know what you think. And get into soils. Try to beat me to it. Let me know what you think histosols will be and see how they compare. But yeah, I don't got much else to say, so we'll leave it at that.